I'm Jack Knight Winters. This is Jack Frost University, and this is video number 4 in my series entitled 66 Reasons to Hate the Federal Government, London, and Rome. Okay. I don't have my selfie stick. This is a bit of a pain in the ass. 501c3s, okay, nonprofits, okay, so if you, all churches in America, if they want tax-exempt status, if they don't want to pay taxes to the IRS, they have to have what's called some kind of a nonprofit code with the IRS. Okay, everyone who operates a church knows about this code. It's not a secret. There's different classifications. Okay, so people start up a church. They can take money in, but they're going to have to pay tax. Well, they're going to have to, as a U.S. citizen, who are, too stupid to understand that they don't have any rights. They have to pay taxes to the IRS, right? Because you take money in, you got to pay taxes, okay? Unless you request from the IRS a nonprofit status, okay? And they have all these different classifications. They have 501c, I think it goes from 501c1 all the way up to 501c13 or maybe higher, or maybe it's just 10 or something, but either way, you have to, in order to not pay taxes to IRS, to be a truly nonprofit, to have tax exempt status, you have to have some kind of a designator with the IRS. They have to approve of your status, right? So all churches, these different classifications, the two that I'm most familiar with, the ones that most people use, are just going to be a 501c3 and a 501c10, okay? A 501c3 is pretty much what every church in America is going by, okay? And there are certain rules or certain benefits and advantages that each subchapter has for you, okay? So it's 501 chapter C and then subchapter 3 or subchapter 10, they're the most popular, okay? So churches, the nature of churches, you can't really reject people or deny people. If people want to go to your church, you have to let them in. You don't really have a choice. You have to let, if people come through your doors, as long as they're not doing weird shit like yelling really loudly or, pissing and like pooping all over the place, I don't know. As long as they're like somewhat well behaved, you actually have to let them into your church, and you have to let them sit and listen, okay? That always seemed really stupid to me, because especially considering there's other classifications, okay? Now, the Freemasons and every other fraternal organization, every fraternal organization out there uses what's called the 501c10. And in that, as you're aware, you can be more selective with who you allow into your ranks. Freemasons have a selective process. And, they don't necessarily, they're not required to let you into their cool club. Okay? So I personally prefer the 501c10 to any I prefer the fraternal organization just because I don't want to let in a bunch of nasties. And I'm really sensitive to spirits, and I don't want to call them demons, but just nasty energy. I'll say it that way. I'm really sensitive to nasty energy. I don't like being around it, so the C10 would work well for me if I ever started a coven or anything. As a state citizen, I don't need to pay taxes regardless, but just for information purposes, informational purposes, the C10 is really the way to go. You can be selective in who you allow in. And basically, it's just a cool club. It's a bunch of your buddies instead of just a bunch of random people just throwing themselves on your pews and hanging out in your churches. But so now that I explained that, let me explain why this is such a crummy deal, and why neither one of them is really necessary. When these churches go and request this 501c3 status from the IRS, they enter into contract with the IRS, and therefore they're entering into contract with the government, federal government, right? And because they're in contract. There's certain things that they can't do in any church, okay? And one of them is nobody, not a prophet, not an apostle, not a disciple, not whatever their classification is, however they label themselves, you can't actually allow anyone in your church, membership, or anyone just showing up as a guest, like say a prophet or something like that, right? They can't speak anything bad about the federal government, okay? That's the deal, okay? That's the whole deal with the contract. In order to get that tax-exempt status from the IRS, you agree that you can't let some madman come in and start saying, hey, you guys are, the federal government, they're crooked, they're corrupt, they're doing this, they're doing that. This is wrong, you can't speak in a negative way towards the federal government. You can't do it. And see, that's to me the problem. See, these people aren't under God. All these people that are going to church thinking they're getting closer to God, you're under a hierarchy. The federal government is structured as a hierarchy. If you look at it, okay? You got the FBI, CIA, Department of Defense. But it all stems out of the District of Columbia, okay? It's a hierarchy. So, all these people going to church thinking they're getting close to God, no, you're not. No, they're not. They're not even getting close to Him. You're getting close to the District of Columbia. Because that's what you signed up for. Because you wanted that, okay? It doesn't matter how many, you can spend all day in prayer. Go ahead. Spend all day in prayer. These people will never see God in the flesh. And the Bible says that God comes in the flesh once in a while, you know what I'm saying? They'll never see God in the flesh. They'll never see Him in spirit. All they're going to get closer to is the District of Columbia, which is a bad place to be, man. If you've ever been to D.C., you know that place is nasty. I've had friends that have been over to D.C. I say, man, it's just drugs, murder, and drugs. And just pimping hoes and doing drugs. It's a gross fucking energy. And the thing is, you can actually sell drugs and pimp women and do it in a whole different manner. Okay? It's not the act itself that's the problem. It's the energy behind it. It's the mannerisms that go along with it, okay? Because they're doing it at the 3D level, and everything that people do at the 3D level just sucks. So, that's another reason to hate federal government, Rome and London. It's all coming from them. All these people, thousands, if not more, millions of people going to church have no fucking clue. And you couldn't go in there and explain to them that they're so far off base anyways. It's not going to happen. They're by law, they're not allowed to. They have to kick you out. And see, I believe that there's prophets out there. There's always prophets. There's always people speaking divinely to kind of guide mankind back into some function, some functional government. Prophets exist. They're out there. They're speaking, okay? But they get silenced by these churches that are filing as 501c3. They get silenced. I've had personal experience with this. I have friends. I have quite a few friends that have gotten kicked out of churches, including myself, for even suggesting that they're on the wrong path. They won't tolerate it, okay? So they're covered, okay? All these people going to church and they have their pastor and they're learning about God. They have what's called a covering. They're covered, but they're covered by the District of Columbia, which has nothing to do with God. Not even fucking close, okay? So, well, there's got to be a lot of disappointed people out there. They think they're getting close to God. They're getting close to DC. That's it. That's all they're getting close to. They're being covered by DC, okay? They like all those benefits. Absolutely no benefits at all. Just complete fucking mind control. So, yeah, that's another reason to hate DC. What are you getting out of that? These people will never get close to God. You can't change them if you wanted to. So it's just not necessary. You don't need any kind of tax-exempt status. You don't need it. You don't need to pay taxes. So, all right. Hope you enjoyed.